Welcome to Baseball Piss on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, and with me, of course, is Mr. Matt Tremaine. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Still roofless in Tampa.
Oh, gosh, brother. I am telling you, it was last week. Yeah, last week I drove over to St. Pete. I had a doctor I had to see, and it was near the Trop, so I had to go over to Ferg's, and I walked over toward the Trop, and man, it was just so weird, so otherworldly to see that frame of a roof still there, just those rings, and seeing a few folks just walking around up there in the rings. I had to zoom in to see them, and I knew right then, well, they're not going to fix this right now. They're assessing. So, man, it's a different world, and that is just such a small part of it. I mean, around here, driving over that way, just you see still homes that have been some demolished, large trees, giant trees. I mean, must be probably 3 feet in diameter or more in some of these things, and just that have fallen to the earth and it's sliced up and diced. But it's interesting because we're going to talk about the Rays, believe it or not, folks. It's a special Rays Up edition of Baseball Biz. And Matt, though, during the meeting, we'll be talking about the meeting of the Pinellas County Commissioners today, going over some things about the Rays, some paperwork that needs to be signed, et cetera, some bond issues. But there was a phrase I heard today, and I think it's apropos because I think it relates both to those politicians and the Rays. It's called, he said, hurricane brain.
Yep.
And some people are still in a bit of a daze, I think, with all this. And plus, life in general has kind of slowed down when you're trying to get reports from FEMA on your house, or just trying to make sure it's finding some housing, for some folks. So I think that in part led to some of the insanity that came out in the press about the whole deal between Pinellas County and the Rays.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that, these are the kinds of times that people remember most. And if a politician were to go and favor the Rays when it came to funding, out of the hurricane funds, the ones that can be used for anything, like I know they don't all come out of the same pot. And I think they alluded to that as well, where there's certain funding that would only be usable for the roof, right? And that one I think is indisputable, that the right way to go about it is to fix the roof. Yeah. That's I think everybody's on that page. The question is whether or not the timeline is one that's attainable for the Rays, because I think the point they're getting to now is that the timeline just doesn't match up with what the Rays want for the new stadium to be built and ready to go. So there's starting to be a little bit of a clash in there. But I think all the politicians want to make sure that their constituents know that they're prioritizing them and their funding first and not just going to roll over and hand over $50 million for the Rays because that timeline is extended.
Well, that's true. And there's a couple of things, because, folks, when we're talking about the Tampa Bay Rays and we're talking about the whole agreement or disagreement, if you will, about the stadium, everything was put together and signed in July, and that was done by the city of St. Petersburg. Now, also needed the approval and buy-in from the Pinellas County where St. Pete sits, and that was actually done too. However, what's happened at this point is, one, there's been an election. We talked about this before. Well, they've got to get this done before the election because you never know what the new guys are going to do. And they've got 2 new commissioners on the commissioners board. So there's some things about getting them up to speed and getting their buy-in, because one of the new guys said, well, the guy that was for the Rays isn't sitting in this chair anymore. It's me. So
yep.
It's the dynamics are there, but the bottom line is the agreement has been in place. It's just now trying to pull the trigger to get the bonds started with the county. But the one thing I think that's almost been misplayed is everybody said, well, we got to take care of the beaches. Yes, we do. All of that needs to be taken care of. But for the Rays, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Matt, we're talking about a bed tax. We're talking about every time somebody comes in to St. Pete, they come into Pinellas County and they stay there, they're going to be paying a tax that's going to go toward the stadium. And that money can only be used for those things. So that bed tax that you pay when you come and visit us down here, that cannot be used for services for the whether it be for water or it cannot be used for paying employees, and it can't be used for restitution of the beaches or renourishing the beaches.
That,
So it's not cutting into that.
that's right. They explained that during the meeting where they said it has to go towards tourism or marketing for tourism, like specifically. And I'm sure there's ways to jerry rig certain things, like if you really wanted to push the limits. But then if you do that, somebody's going to call you out on it and it's going to get raked back and you're going to owe somebody else more money. So it doesn't make any sense to push those limits. Like you said, it's such a, and I've seen this happen in government too. Like I've worked for government a lot where they have money for a building and they have the plans for a building, but there's no money left in that pot for a building. But there is one for an annex building, which costs more to build, but that pot is available to them. So they build an annex one, even though it costs more and it wasn't in the original plans. So everything has to come from a certain pot of money. And for the Rays, both for the roof side of things and for how the stadium's going to be funded, it's pretty clear cut in terms of where that money's going to come from, and it's been agreed to by the vast majority of the people in the area who supported the politicians after the vote was done in St. Petersburg and backed them up again. I think I can't remember the exact percentage that they said they won by, but apparently it was a landslide. So like over 80% support for the councillors that supported that deal. So it's a popular deal in St. Petersburg. So there's no reason to play hardball here. But what's happening too, and I pay attention a little bit to politics as well. You had some people in there wearing their red ties and showing a little bit of their affiliations, and I want to say like the Stu Sternberg hasn't always been best friends with the governor of Florida, and there's certain things that have come out to play where Ron DeSantis actually blocked something that cost the Rays millions of dollars. I can't remember exactly what it was now. It escapes me. But he was supposed to be able to approve something that was in the works and he kiboshed it. So could it happen again in this case by strong arming this angle? Anything is possible. I think we've seen a lot worse in politics.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I don't think the governor's worried about that right now. He's got a couple of positions he's got to see about filling, and you got to wonder about personalities, because a lot of, even when I was hearing today in the meeting, you're hearing personalities getting in the middle of taking care of business, and that's a damn shame. But I know that happened with DeSantis and Stu a few years back, and like you, I can't remember the specifics, but I do remember that was the case. So. What I look at this thing. Okay, today during the meeting, the vice chair, what's his name? Is it Brian Scott? He holds up a newspaper, the Tampa Bay Times, and you can find their paper is actually tampabay.com. You can find it there. But I don't know if you saw this part or not. And by the way, the press is there at this meeting. And he holds up the newspaper, Tampa Bay Times, big headline, at least 2-inch type, 2 inches. It says, "End of the stadium deal." Bam, big time. So it consumes the front page of the paper. And Brian Scott is like, we have to kind of combat some of the stuff that's coming out of here. And I think our good friend Colleen Wright must have been there. Because twice I saw him and I saw the chair look over in a certain direction when they said about the media. And I thought, that's the publication she's with. But it's there's just a lot going on with personalities and cutting through the crap. And the headline he was showing us was in part because of something Lou, our good buddy Stu, had been talking about. And I guess seeing how much of a delay this was going to make, and possibly they'd have to move the Rays because if the Pinellas commissioners didn't get on board quickly, some changes were going to have to be made.
Yeah, the timeline thing does seem to be more pushed from a Rays point of view. So to me, that article kind of points to the fact that a lot of times Stu has spoken to people through his own connections at the Times. And I think that's a fault of theirs. I think they've manipulated the media in that form, and they kind of they're not always how would you put it, cognizant of the impact of how they communicate on some of the people in politics in the region. Now, is it by design? Is it calculated? Is it effective? I don't know, because I don't know what their goals actually are in each instance, right? So you have to know that their business is not always straight, as an arrow. There's a lot of crooked angles being played along the way to get you to that destination. So the question now is, how does everybody's timeline match up? Because we all know the stadium builds can delay and delay and delay and extend. And at some point, if you're sitting there with an MLB franchise, you don't have a stadium, you're playing in a minor league park, at some point you kind of want to get going and get your ducks in a row. And so every delay is sort of a salt in the wounds. But like I said, when you're communicating the way he is, you're bringing it on yourself. There's a good chance that if Stu Sternberg was a better communicator and was more attentive to the wants and needs of people in the region, the lease would have been torn up and they'd already be developing the site by now. There's a good chance that they would be there, but it's just not the way that it is. And it's not the way that he communicates. It's very antagonistic. You don't hang a sign on the Trop pointing to a sister city concept without being an antagonistic person, right?
Yeah.
And so it comes across in a lot of the way he communicates. And right now he's sort of like a little bit petulant is what I would say.
I like that. And the word that usually comes after that is child.
Right.
Well, I think there's a gene that once you become an owner of an MLB team, you have to go to MLB headquarters and they alter your DNA. And I don't know if it's a stupid gene or an arrogant gene, but I think back to Cincinnati Reds and where else you gonna go? You remember their owner was a Castellini saying something like that, talking about possibly move. Do you want me to move the team? I mean, that was.
Well, Reinsdorf is doing that right now to the White Sox. He's trying
Lord.
to get a new deal for a new stadium, and he doesn't like where it is. So, there's always these threats, and he had done it with Tampa before, wasn't it? Him that was doing it.
Yeah.
Use Tampa as an angle. Anyway, the whole premise is ridiculous, but it does get people moving, and when billionaires speak, generally speaking, people listen. Whether it's good or bad.
Whether it's good or bad. The funny thing is, and a couple of years ago, we'd say something, wouldn't it be neat if Vinnick picked up the Rays?
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, well, what about that guy who's doing everything with the Rockets? He seems to be okay. Maybe not. Maybe I'm really glad that didn't happen. But anyway, we got Stu. And I don't know what to think about him sometimes. I look at these teams and Stu, and I say, how deft, how attentive, and how negotiations must go if you're Erik Neander, okay? And he has to be very, almost, what I want to say, just like a wise diplomat, somebody who's putting together a peace accord when he's bringing in a new player. But that sort of gene, I'd like to get and instill that into Stu because I don't think it's there.
Well,
I don't know, brother.
let's look at it from a conceptual point of view. Okay, so you're one of 30. So when you're talking about collector's items, right? When there's only 30 of something, it's pretty valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and in this case, owning an MLB franchise just tends to be a tax haven, really. So you're really, really doing well for your wealth. You're managing things in a way that actually helps you build value over time. So it's sort of like having a home on steroids, basically, where you're able to add value as it's gaining traction and the market keeps going up. But if you're Stu Sternberg and you're watching the Quebec government right now on its own without any MLB team associated to it, slap on an $870 million roof. Now, mind you, they don't have a hurricane that came through and destroyed everything, and they don't have competing things that they needed to put that money towards. But they're doing this on their own accord without any billionaire pressuring them to do it. And you're watching this happen. Okay, they get an $870 million roof. I'm asking for an entire new stadium. I'm willing to pay, well, whatever it is, 600 million, or I can't remember exactly how much his portion was, maybe 700 million. And they still are putting me through the ringer for the rest of it.
Yeah.
And it just gets to be, I don't want to say it gets to be old, because it's a lot of money, and it should go towards the taxpayers and something that's valuable, and they get to assess and vote on and do all the procedures they're doing. They're all entitled to do it. But I'm saying, when you have, it would be, so the best way I can put it is like this, Mark. If you're at an auction and you're selling a painting and you have a guy holding up his palette, just waving it in the air, and he's like, I will give you all my money. And you have another guy who's got it halfway up, and he's like, I don't know if I really like it. Which one are you going to go with?
Yeah.
Obviously, I think he's from Northeast United States, so he's from New York, and he would be able to travel back and forth to Montreal or to any other location. I think Nashville would be another one that would be willing to pony up a lot of money. Utah have a group who are extremely wealthy in the market that's really enticing a lot of activity. So I'm saying, at some point in time, the St. Petersburg and Pinellas and everybody else have to realize they're in competition, and they have to sometimes bend to the will of others. And sometimes they just have to say, no, we're not interested. But you got to pick one or the other, and you got to be decisive about it, or else you're just going to never get the deal that you're actually looking for. Maybe not the best deal for the area.
Well, I think the senior folks on the commission know that.
Mhm.
And both Brian Scott and what's the other lady's name? Oh, I can't think for the life of me. I'll bring it up here in a moment, but she was basically the chair.
Mhm.
And the thing both of them have said is that, one, we've made a commitment. We've already said we're going to do this. We need to be able to be, she didn't say honorable, but we have made this commitment. We said we're going to do it, and we need to follow through it because we have put our name out there. It's Kathleen Peters.
Right.
And I thought, that's pretty good. I like that. And she said the other part was to her and Brian Scott said this, when they're talking to them, they spoke actually to the new people. They said, I want you to understand this may be the most important vote you make your entire career, even though you're starting today.
Mhm.
This decision we made by putting a new stadium in, excuse me, it's a generational and transformative action that we can take. The return on investment will be there. They're got a positive take on all that. They see the long term. Yes, it's a large investment, but I think the one thing that kept coming back though in that meeting when I was watching it today, Matt, is the one of the, I won't say which one, said the whole idea of what's been happening with the Rays, quote, reeks of corporate selfishness. They were saying, what is the meaning of this letter? We've all, anyways, that I get that there was a sense actually of personal pain between what was coming from Stu's office and the folks that are there. But going back to the chair and the vice chair saying, yes, this is going to generational and transformative change, and it's going to be positive action. And I hope that those new guys they take note of that, and when the next meeting comes up here, I think December 17th, that they go ahead and ratify it.
I can never prove what I'm going to say, honestly, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist at all, and there might be no value to it whatsoever. But if you're Stu Sternberg and you have development rights in the area the way you do, and you know hurricanes are becoming more and more and more prominent, to the point where insuring some of your businesses is going to become extremely hard to do or expensive over time, and you have a huge stake in there in that area, and so you're starting to second guess now after you've made that commitment in July, some of your investments. So this happens, and then you look at the area and you look at how hard hit it is, and what the economic factors are going to be for the people that are surrounding the stadium, and they're not going to be concentrated on your team regardless of how good you do, because they're going to be hard up trying to maintain their property value in their homes, and a lot of other more human priorities. So you're looking around at this and you're like, well, then the corporations aren't going to set up shop here if that's the case. And if I don't get the corporate support and I don't have the public support that I need for this franchise, and I'm not in Tampa on top of it, that this is just not ideal. So what do? You antagonize the groups enough to the point where maybe they do walk away from the deal, and they have new people, and maybe the whole pressuring thing was to try to get them to make a quick decision of no. Now, it didn't go that way, and they're going to delay, and they're going to, I think they figured out that they can delay as long as they want, really, and they don't have a firm date. But they're going to reconvene in December and have a better look at it and make a firmer decision at that point. But I'm just saying that I would not be surprised if Stu Sternberg is not, I don't want to say relieved, but is not like at the same time a little bit excited about other opportunities if it does come to that.
Right. Right. I mean, I had to think completely. As soon as that came through and the roof was torn off, I immediately thought, well, what would it be like if St. Pete hadn't signed that agreement? What if that was still there? Would the Rays wanted to continue to stay in St. Pete? Would that have happened? I don't know, but I wouldn't call it an opportunity, but a circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Stu could see the potential. I think he's a smart fella. However I may feel about some of the things that come out of his mouth, I think he's a smart fella, or he wouldn't be doing what he's doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I still think, Mark, like and this is going to be a little bit crazier as well. I think that if you were MLB and you wanted to maximize the value of the Rays and if the area, and to make it fair and square, and to do it in a way that might be amenable to all parties involved, as the commissioner, I would head down there and I would head down with the Yankees, with the Steinbrenners.
Yep.
And I would say, listen, Steinbrenners, you can have the Al Lang site, set up a beautiful park. We'll even pay for it. We'll pay, I think 30 million is what they paid for the Steinbrenner field or whatever. We'll pay 50 for this one to be developed the way you want at Al Lang. You get that site, you get to develop as you want. St. Petersburg, in that case, in the area, get baseball nearby that they can actually enjoy from a team that is extremely popular in the area. And the Rays get the Steinbrenner Field site, and they get to develop a stadium there in an area that makes way more sense to have an MLB stadium stage that doesn't have to worry as much about the hurricane damage, and that can actually, grow over time to having a fan base that actually supports the Rays the way they should support it. To me, that's the solution for the Rays in Tampa. Whether or not it ever comes close to that, I don't know. I think the first test is going to be 2025. Does it get the corporate, political, and fan base in Tampa excited about Major League Baseball at their doorstep? If it happens to do that, then I think there could be a push towards something like that happening.
Yeah, that's definitely got me intrigued. I wouldn't mind seeing how that does play out. I know that was part of the brouhaha too from one of the new guys over at the Pinellas Commission, going on and on about, oh, look at they're going to be spending money over there, and they're going to be having the team over in Hillsborough, not staying over here in Pinellas. It's like, yeah, you know what? You don't have a field large enough or one that MLB is going to say is decent enough in Pinellas to work. You go over there to, Steinbrenner Field, you've got that. Yes, I'm sure there's going to be changes made. What was it? I never can remember how to say it. Salem Field up there with the, oh,
What?
geez, the Blue Jays
Oh,
in
was it?
2020.
Yep.
And they took the Bisons, their AAA team's field over, and they made changes to it. They enhanced it, and they played the entire year there. And I mean, I could see them doing that here with the Yankees and Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. But wouldn't
Right.
it be something?
But honestly, like, so you're looking at it from this way, okay? And then what you can do is say, okay, that $55 million that we're going to spend on the roof, we can spend whatever portion was going to come out of Pinella or St. Pete, can go towards better things then. But think about it this way: how much would it cost to add 5,000 seats to that Steinbrenner Fields to have the 16,000 attendance, right?
Yeah.
At that point, 16,000, you're fine. This is what you were getting before. If anything, you can probably sell the tickets for a higher price because you're closer to Tampa and you can sell more corporate seats and more season tickets and etc. So I think it just makes too much sense in too many ways. Now, I know there's a history with the Steinbrenner Field. There's a this, there's a that, there's the other thing. I don't care. At some point, you kind of have to move on and make them an offer that they can't refuse for that site, which is large enough for Major League Baseball to be located without any red tape from politicians in the area. It's completely controlled by baseball entities
Mm-hmm.
that can just make the wise choice, and it makes business sense. It just does. The Yankees don't benefit enough from 11,000 seat A class affiliate for it to make sense for Major League Baseball to say, okay, the Rays can't be there. It doesn't make any sense.
No, no. I mean, I've been over there for single A games, and it is slim. I mean, it
Mhm.
was like maybe a couple thousand people, if that, when I went there for a game. So what they'd be able to get by turning it to with the Rays, I think, yeah, it's insane. They're not going to be making the money off of that single A team for that place. But
Exactly.
mm-mm-mm.
I'm gonna write a letter to the Rob Manfred. Just concerned Rays fan.
Maybe we should do a an open petition on Blue Sky. Yeah.
Right.
For
Well, the,
no.
the the Rays made another trade with a New York team, though. Did you hear?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, during the meetings I'm looking and somebody referenced him and I thought they don't know. He just got traded. Go ahead and tell the story, my friend.
So Jose Siri was traded to the Mets, who they don't get Juan Soto yet, but they do get somebody that can patrol center field, who was benched twice by Kevin Cash. And I don't know what you have to do to get benched twice by Kevin Cash, but obviously it was enough. The Rays had enough. I've told you before how Chandler Simpson, I feel, is MLB ready.
Oh
And I
yeah.
feel like this really opens the door and streamlines the road to him. For now, they also added Jake Mangum to the 40-man roster to protect him from the Rule 5. They got him as the player to be named later when the Rays sent Vidal Brujan and Calvin Fauché
Hmm.
to the Marlins. And the Rays also got two other players in that deal, Eric Lara and Andrew Lindsay, who are still in the system. So, Jake Mangum plays extremely hard, has a really good hit tool. And the other thing that I find intriguing now that Siri's not around, and they'll probably want to bridge the gap to Chandler Simpson, is when I looked at 2022 through to 2024, and Jose Siri, I wanted to see the best weighted runs created by center fielders with 300 at bats or more over that time frame. And Jose Siri ended up 51st on that list with an 86 WRC plus,
Hmm.
and right ahead of him, because I'm sure there's like dots, right? There's percentage points that we don't get to see on Fangraphs, but right ahead of him at number 50 was Dylan Carlson. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of Dylan Carlson in center field for the Rays, and Johnny DeLuca as well, and others. Jake Mangum probably if he plays really well in spring training. But Dylan Carlson's a switch hitter, and when you look at his hitting profile, he matches up really well with what Jose Siri has managed. Now the difference is that he's a lot younger than Jose Siri, and there might still be another level for him to hit because of that. So maybe the Rays figure some playing time and more consistency, could help him achieve more. And then if they need to slide him to left or right field at some point, because he is a switch hitter, they can use him, in any of those roles. So Jose Siri goes there. The Rays get Erik Orze. I don't even know how to say the last name. It's Orze. So you can say it however you want. But he's an intriguing guy as well. He gets about 12K per nine. Through his minors career, it's been pretty consistent at that. The walks up and down. I think he was at 4.5 last year per nine. So it's not elite, but the Rays have been known to get that level down a lot, which is what they did last year with Edwin Uceta, who became the star in the pen for the Rays in the second half.
Right.
So I think there's a chance that they're able to do something similar with him, and he misses a lot of bats. He's hard to hit, and I could even see them eventually rolling him into like a multi-innings role. So when you're looking at the right side of the pen for the Rays, you have like Pete Fairbanks, you have Edwin Uceta, you have Drew Rasmussen, you have Kevin Kelly, and then you have this guy. Like they're really, really strong on the right side. And so the guy that they ended up waiving to make place for everybody was Richard Lovelady, who's going to be he was designated for assignment, but they have 5 days to see if they can work out a deal for him.
Wow. Yeah, Lovelady. I guess I was a little surprised to see him go, but or at least be put out for that. Let's see. What I wasn't surprised though to see, and that was one of our X-rays. And that is Mr. Willy Adames. So he basically rejected the option for a 1-year contract at $21.5 million with the Brewers. And I'm curious where he's going to land, because I keep remembering that if you lose a player, a veteran, and I don't know if there's a borderline, you have to make at least 50 million. If that player makes over 50 million, that you get an earlier draft. Your team does if you lose that player?
Yeah, there's levels to it now where, and I think there's more than one tier. I think there's 3 or 4 tiers. And so I think if you sign over 100 million, it's a certain amount. If you sign over this, it's that. Yeah, and it's changed year to year. So I don't know exactly where it stands. But definitely, Willy Adames is on that fringe where, depending on how desperate a team is, he could end up getting more. And where I want to see him go, and I know it's a weird spot because they have a shortstop named Javi Baez, and I think with the Detroit Tigers, if they want to take that next step forward,
Yeah.
You talk about changing the makeup of your team significantly in terms of like how solid your infield can play. Javi Baez is a great second baseman, but he's a terrible shortstop. I don't understand the attraction there. So Willy Adames would be a great fit, I think, with AJ Hinch and the Tigers. I think they have the money for it. I just don't know really if they see him as the solution. But I looked through their entire system in terms of shortstops, and there's nothing that stands out. So it would really solidify them there at the position for a while. And yeah, I think that's the fit for them. Now, a lot of people are saying maybe the Dodgers, but the Dodgers are getting everybody, and I'm tired of it. So I just don't want to put them in.
I'm with you. I mean, yeah. Okay. Super team. I'm happy for you. Don't take any more of the good guys. I mean, we'll just let them be somewhere else. Willie is that personality who's going to. We talked him before about having a glue guy, and
Mhm.
he is definitely a glue guy.
Oh, he's the definition of a glue guy. I don't think there's anybody that can be around him and not smile and not love the game. He's a little bit like Francisco Lindor in that way, where he just lights up. Juan Soto is the same kind of personality. Um, yeah, and there's just there's a lot of guys that are a little bit of the opposite, where and when you're wondering, okay, well, how quickly does a team want to change? So I'll give you an example. A team that I would love to see, as well as the Tigers, but I just don't know if they're there yet. They should release Anthony Rendon in LA
Right.
and sign Willy Adames. Think about you're going from Eeyore to Tigger. And so I think they're like Willy Adames and Ron Washington. Oh my goodness. You talk about a bowl of positivity. It would just change the Angels for so much good. Anthony Rendon has negative value at this point. And I just don't know what they're going to get out of him anyway, even if they
Yeah.
do keep him around. So they're just making it take the band-aid off in one fell swoop. Just go ahead, get rid of him. If you can send them and get 5 pennies for him, that's great. Send him back to the Nationals or somewhere else. But he's just weighing down that team, and they need some positivity. Now they made a few moves, like Kevin Newman, I think they picked up, and a couple of other guys that they make it questionable that they would go for a shortstop. But I thought, if Willy Adames is willing to go to third, that's the spot for him, in my opinion, right next to Zach Neto.
I would love to see him there, man. He's and like I said, with Ron Washington to boot, the one guy that I do want to see completely insane, not has anything actually to do with Major League Baseball, but we talked about this before. I think uh, Brett Phillips, right? I mean, he's going to be a pitcher now. So,
Yeah.
oh,
I
I
don't know where he's gonna land, and I haven't seen him like really pitch like now that he's really taking it on. But man, that guy is just
yeah.
I hope he goes into announcing later on, or you know hosting baseball shows. He just has to put himself out there and be in the limelight, because you can't bottle. Yeah, there's no way you could imagine somebody that positive and upbeat and loving the game the way he does. It's infectious.
Oh
It
yeah.
really is. Yeah.
Hey, what do you think now? All right, I'll say this. When I watch the Rays at home, I've been watching them on Bally Sports.
Mhm.
And, one day I looked down at my phone and the Bally Sports logo was no longer there. It's FanDuel. And I was like, what? Then I'm looking a little closer. I say, okay, time to go ahead and suspend my subscription. Not to mention, I mean, I could watch the Lightning with them, but it's not, what I really enjoy doing. And man, right now between the bankruptcy that's going on with their parent company, Diamond, I'm really curious what it's going to continue to look like. What teams are still going to be tied in with Diamond or Bally or FanDuel, whatever it is now? I've got to do some homework on that one.
Like the gif where the guy's in front of the board and he's writing these math equations, and it's all like trying to make sense of things.
Yeah.
That's essentially the TV mess that Major League Baseball is in right now. They really missed the boat in terms of sorting themselves out. Every other league figured it out, and baseball is still antiquated and trying to trying to force the old school system on the companies that just want nothing to do with it anymore. So yeah, I don't know why the process is so slow. If Major League Baseball had any way of knowing how to market itself, it would be resolved a long time ago. They would take ownership of it. They would market it the right way to get the revenue that they need within their own streaming services, and then they would continue to build the relationships like they have been with Apple and a few other of the mainstream places like Amazon and whatever else. It's not. I don't want to say it's not complicated, because of course it always is,
Yeah.
but they have the brain trust to do it. So why isn't it being done? I still say it's because they're all led by old men for the most part. And
Jeez.
that's the way that it goes.
Well, they're still trying to figure it out. And as fans, we know, okay, I have Bally Sports or FanDuel, whatever it is. Do I have the MLB app? Yes. Okay, but I'm not going to be able to see everything there because I got to also sometimes have Peacock or Amazon or Apple. And because you can't watch your team one place through the entire year. And then let's see, the thing was the Padres and the Diamondbacks. They fell off the whole Diamond thing. They were missing payments, and MLB picked them up. And I need to reach out to somebody out there and find out how they're handling those games. Are they still blackout? Let's see. And providing their games blackout free through MLB TV. I'm reading one thing real quick here on ESPN. If that's the case, man, I'd have MLB all the time if I could just see all of my games, period. Not worrying about wake up the next day and see the Rays because I can't watch them live.
Yeah. I think the Utah Jazz do something very unique, where they broadcast their games locally for free, and then they have a site that they run where you can get access to a whole bunch of other interviews, data, games, etc., extended clips, all these types of things, and they charge money or monthly subscription for that. And then so what it does is it builds up your fan base to be in incredible levels. Like everybody's, able to get access to the games no matter what that are local. And they go to the games because they become fans of the team. So they're always full. And they get the revenue from the app service that they're actually, providing.
Wow.
So they're making out more money in that form than they would with any sort of other service. So if they can do it for that, and it's the same way that I look at, the way the Green Bay Packers are able to be competitive with all the other teams in football because of the way the budgeting is worked out for each team, and the cap and the floor and yada yada yada. Like there's ways of doing things, and Major League Baseball just has to get its head wrapped around it and look at which teams are having the most success, which leagues are having the most success, and play a little bit of copycat when it comes to that, instead of trying to forge it on your own terms, like for whatever reason being unique. I don't know.
So where are you watching the Perth Heat at?
So they've gone through a melancholy, is the best way I would put it, of different ways of showing their games. And so a lot of times you have to just wait until the season begins and sort of so basically I've been watching the highlights, so that I watch the game after the fact instead of watching it live, just so that I can find it easier. I can fast forward. I can actually watch the players that I want to watch play, instead of having to, because the one thing about the Rays and what they sent this year is that they didn't send any pitchers. So it's a little bit different than it was in previous years. And I think the reason for that is the focus on the Australian Baseball League and getting a lot of Korean talent over. And a lot of the teams have chosen to delve into the pool of pitchers that they have and coming out of Korea that are really talented. And they're a little bit older and they're a little bit more professional and higher caliber than what the Rays would have been sending over. So what the Rays were sending over were basically, rookie level to A level pitchers that they wanted to get more innings for whatever reason. Now that's all fine and good, but they're getting 5, 6, 7 walks per 9 on average. And it's not really a pleasant, thing to watch when you're a fan, or, you're trying to build up a league. So I think they just wanted something a little bit more professional, and the Rays I don't know if they weren't willing to entertain sending older pitchers, or if the pitchers were just saying no themselves. I can't speak to that. Yeah, so now when you watch the highlights of Rays prospects in the ABL, you can just focus on the hitters. And I have to say, And Hel Mateo is doing an excellent job of making an impact. His first two games, he had a home run in each one. One was a mammoth shot. He was only 19 this year, and he's really, you talk about electric players, like guys that just, they have that kind of energy. He has that, and he's 19, and he has enough speed. So what he's working on in the ABL that I'm hoping shines through next year is his hit tool, so that he can get more of that power that seems to be in there somewhere.
So what else is going on in the wild, wild world of Matt Germain? Any books you're reading? Any shows you're watching?
Oh man, I've been watching The Penguin.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, man, what a show. Like it's everything you would dream Gotham to be, but they made it like it's because it's not all about Batman. It just shows you, his story, and they do a really good job of I don't know. It's got some really good writers and really good acting, and the scenes are really good. Like I think it's well worth the watch if ever you get a chance to watch it. Oh, and I will say I'm balancing that out with the wife because she likes the marvelous Madame Maisel. So there's an upbeat and there's a downbeat, and there's an upbeat, and you got to give and take. And I'm also getting ready for Christmas. We've got the lights up on the front of the house already.
Oh, wow.
We don't have any cold weather though. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't feel like snow is anywhere near arriving.
Supposed to get all the way down into the 70s here the next day or so.
Oh wow.
Yeah, go figure. No, it's I myself, I'm trying to do a little bit more with women in baseball. I was reading a book. It's Making My Pitch by Isla Borders, and she's quite the story to tell of like being a professional baseball player, like with the St. Paul Saints, and that's the time when Mike Vick, yeah, you remember this, you remember him, Mike Vick?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
The dog pound guy.
Yep. Now, it's funny. I mean, there's some stories about him. It made me, while I was reading her book, I also dug out, I think it's on Netflix, with Secondhand, Saint of Secondhand, can't even speak, The Saint of Second Chances, which was a story on him, and which is very, very cool. And reminds me not only about the blowing up of the records and the disco, but setting off fireworks inside the drop. quite quite the individual.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a good book. And it's called Making My Pitch.
I think you're putting me onto a certain path now because I do want to get back into reading a little bit more baseball books. It's been a while since I read my last one, so I think I might pick a few for the Christmas break and see if I can get a few notches in my baseball book reading. Usually at this time of year, I'm ordering my Baseball America handbook, and then once Christmas hits and turn it over to the new year, I'm able to delve into that, and kind of my nose doesn't come out of it for a few weeks. So yeah, that's what I usually focus on. But I do want to touch on one other thing, Mark, before we let this go. Roki Sasaki's made some comments that are really intriguing, and I don't know it. I'm not saying he's going to end up with the Rays, but he did, reiterate constantly every time I've heard him speak, every time I've heard him, say where he would want to go, that he is focused on going somewhere where his personal development is going to be optimized. And I do think it puts the Rays, within the top 5 of MLB when you look at it from a pitcher's point of view. So it's intriguing because what it would take in this case for the Rays to land him probably would be to negate some international signings that they were going to do with Latin American players, in order to sign him to the maximum amount that that they could, basically, which isn't going to be very much, to be quite honest. And then they get to keep him for 6 years, right? That are 7 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of like what the Angels had with Ohtani. So it's something to keep an eye on because, the Rays, they seemingly have a set rotation, But if you do that, and the reason I say that is because when I look at the Rays moves today, they also kept Cole Sulser. Now it doesn't seem like much on the front, but what it meant was that they were keeping a 34-year-old reliever who was very effective last year instead of protecting somebody like Cole Wilcox or Logan Workman, who are two very intriguing right-handed pitchers that will probably get plucked in a Rule 5 draft. So when you're doing that, it tells me that you're closer to wanting to compete than people might think you are. And so if the Rays were able to have Shane McClanahan come back and have somebody like Roki Sasaki and have the rotation behind that they already have, then all of a sudden you're able to use some of your pitching depth to go and grab, a few hitters that are intriguing that can really amp up. They just opened up center field. Who's to say they're not going to go get Luis Robert from the White Sox? Or I can name a lot of other guys, obviously, but all that to say that they're not going to say no if Roki Sasaki is willing to sign with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a young guy too, just about let's see, 23 years old.
That's right.
And I'm looking real quickly here, but an ERA of 2.10, strikeouts 505 in 2024, win-loss record 29-15. Yeah. Pitched a perfect game in April 2022. Man, Roki Sasaki. Yeah, that would add some color to the team, man. I could see where this guy could be something new with that. I like the idea of that.
Yep. I think that the downside is the stadium issue and all the
Yeah.
other things. So I don't think the Rays are in contention, to be quite honest. But I think that when you're looking at it from a development point of view, it does put them, at the forefront of teams that would be of interest to somebody in that position. So I don't know where he's going to land. I just hope that it's not LA or New York. And that if that's the case, he's going to be a lot of fun to watch in 25 or 26.
Yeah, I like that. It brings something to mind. You kind of touched on it there too. The whole stadium issue. Who are we going? Any free agent? If you're a free agent, would you come here knowing that the way things are as far as having a stadium and having a place to play?
So I think it would, like, remember when the Rays brought in Nate Eovaldi, or they brought in Wilson Ramos, or those kinds of guys that were trying to rebuild their value, and the Rays overpaid a little bit to bring them aboard.
Right.
It's going to be that kind of deal. So let's
Gotcha.
say they want to bring in Danny Jansen and they want to give him $8 million a year. Nobody else is willing to give him more than 6. Then that's a way that they can actually get him, notched up. And I think they are working towards something like that. It's one of the reasons they let go of Jose Siri. They saved $2 million there by using Jake Mangum for that roster spot. So it already starts working you towards being able to afford something like that. I do think the Rays are going to be aggressive in getting either Kyle Higashioka or Danny Jansen. I think those are the next two they're really going to be looking at, unless they just happen to not like one or the other for whatever reason. It could be health purposes, health reasons. But Kyle Higashioka, is from the Yankees, and he's worked a lot in that stadium that they're going to be playing in. So, there's a comfort factor there. He knows the AL East very well. He's not going to ask for the moon. He just wants the playing time more than anything at his age. And so, he might want some revenge on the Yankees and some other things that we're not. Who knows?
Like he have his old locker
Yeah,
back, right?
exactly. So I think
Wow.
that's something to watch for. The Rays to me, they're acting like a team that wants to compete. They haven't gotten rid of Brandon Lau yet. They haven't
Yeah.
gotten rid of Yandy Diaz. They're still hanging on at Jeffrey Springs. Those are the three big costly players. And they still have Pete Fairbanks. So as long as those 4 players are on board, the Rays are really looking to compete in 2025.
Well, I'm ready for it, brother. It's going to be a wild ride. I got a feeling as far as, sitting back and watching the insanity, getting all the paperwork done, the money done. I know sometimes I just feel like I'm done with it. Uh, you and I both, yeah. But I wanted them here. I wanted them on this side of the water, wanted them in Tampa. But if that comes to be, oh, I know what it was. There's one last thing I meant to say is Ken Hagan. I heard on WDAE radio today, one of the personalities there said they had spoken with Ken Hagan, who was very instrumental about pushing to get the Rays here in Tampa. And he said where a lot of folks heard there was only being $300 million being offered by the city, he said there was like another $300 million on top of that, but it was kind of a growing into it. It wasn't like here's $600 million straight up. So he was kind of putting it out there that maybe there'd be a little bit more money or a little bit more flexibility, evidently, in Tampa today. So I don't know. We'll see what comes.
Yep, I think there's another saga to be played just when we thought it was done and over with. That's the gift that keeps on giving.
That's it, brother. That is absolutely it. Oh gosh. Well, it's great talking with you here again today, Matt. Just want to tell you folks, it's been kind of crazy lately, so I apologize for not getting anything out. Hurricane brain, we'll go with that, and a lot of other hurricanes, but it's good to be back. I'll be back a little bit more frequently. Hopefully Matt will be here some as well, and we'll just have fun. So look forward to the next time, and thank you again for joining us here on Baseball Biz on Deck. Well, if that's it, let's go ahead and give her a wrap, and thank you everybody once again for joining Matt and I here today on Baseball Biz on Deck, and we look forward to talking with you all again real soon. Special thanks to X-Tech RUX for the music Rocking Forward. Remember, you can find Baseball Biz on Deck here. You find it on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify and wherever you look online. We're there.
I'm ready, buddy.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the week, everybody. Special thanks to X-Tech RUX for the music Rocking Forward.
You can catch more of Matt on Blue Sky at mattgermain.bsky.social. Mark can be found on Blue Sky at baseballbizondeck.bsky.social and at baseballbizondeck.com.